and when reality is diluted to satisfy the masses, where political correctness has so dissipated our values that we can't even recognize the America that our founding fathers envisioned. How did we get so lost? And how do we get our country back? You know, my personal story is a very simple one. I grew up in upstate New York and I worked in a dairy. My family's life was very simple. My dad worked, my mom stayed home, we went to church on Sunday, we said the rosary on Tuesdays. We did, every Tuesday. I was taught to respect my elders, to salute the flag, to obey authority and protect the weak, and to shiver when Sister Euphemia went by with that ruler. I've often wondered about calling her and say, hey, it's me, you still got that ruler? But truthfully, that not only feels like a different generation, it feels like a different planet. Now, I decided to be a lawyer at a very young age, and I became a prosecutor, a judge, and a DA. 3-term elected DA, elected judge. And let me say, thank you, I'm very honored. There is nothing that I enjoy more than presenting my case and making my arguments, whether it was in front of a jury, on Fox News, or when I speak around the country. As a young prosecutor, I started one of the first domestic violence units in the nation. I was passionate. I was passionate about crime victims. I was passionate about the person who, unlike the criminal, never chose to be a part of the criminal justice system. And it's been called the criminal justice system, when in truth, it should have been called the victim's justice system. The victim never wanted to be in the game. And so began my fight to level the playing field between the criminal and the victim, or as I say today, between the politicians and us. Now, I ran for office 5 times in New York because politics was a means for me to attain my goals. Running for office gave me the ability to be an agent of change. And to me, the end game was to protect women, children, and the vulnerable, the silent victims of crime. And yet all the rights and all the emphasis seemed to be upside down on the criminal. And so, politics for me was how I got my message out there. And make no mistake, it's a blood sport, and I have the scars to prove it. But it was worth it, because I was able to fight for laws and fight to make a system accessible to those who never thought they had any rights. And by the way, every time, with the Republican, the Independent, and the conservative line. I was lucky. I had a great assist. I was lucky to be born, as they say in the USA. Which brings me to my message. Why do people come to America? Why do they flock here? Why? Because we are the greatest country on earth, because we have the right to speak freely, because we have the right to practice our religion, and because we have individual rights that other countries have never even heard of. Now, I want you to think about where we were 14 months ago under that leftist leader, Barack Obama. We were repeatedly reminded that we weren't exceptional, that we weren't special, that America was just another one of the global nations. Well, I've got news for you. I don't want to be a part of a global nation. I want to be a part of this nation, America. The nation that my grandparents chose, a nation that my father and grandfather fought for in World War II. But folks, I hate to tell you this, we're losing it. We were brainwashed to believe that we weren't special, that we weren't Christian if we didn't do what they said we should do. And he came at just the right time. At a time when we needed his tough talk, his unvarnished perspective. The economy was in shambles. More Americans were unemployed than almost ever before in our nation's history. Millions weren't counted because they simply gave up looking for work. And they had the gall to tell us it was a healthy economy when there was barely a pulse. And a 1% annual GDP was the new norm for these geniuses. And the depth of corruption in the Department of Justice and the FBI, so immoral, so unethical, that they allowed the sale of 20% of America's uranium to Russia with a classic payback to the Clinton Foundation of $145 million and $500,000 cash in Bill's pocket for a speech. And they want to accuse our president of collusion. And isn't it amazing that every time they accuse the president of one thing, it comes back at them like a boomerang? Like you point one finger and four are facing back at you? You need to think back to the president who couldn't comprehend global terrorism, who called ISIS a JV team, not knowing whether to contain them, to dismantle them, to destroy them, none of which, by the way, he ever did. And as this JV team unleashed its brutal and inhumane genocide on Christians across the Middle East, that man, President Obama, at his national prayer breakfast says, quote, "Unless we get on our high horse and think this is unique to some other place, remember that during the Crusades and the Inquisition, people committed terrible deeds in the name of Christ. And in our home country, slavery and Jim Crow was all too often justified in the name of Christ." Close quote. Wait, are you saying that we deserve this? That it's our turn at the stake of barbarity? Oh yeah. He arrived just in time when we needed to be inspired, when we needed a new agenda, when we needed someone that we could look up to. We were desperate for equal justice. We were tired of being told by the FBI and the Department of Justice that all was well with Hillary Clinton, with the foundation, with the emails, with Fast and Furious, that everything is on the up and up. To be sure, he was not your politically correct standard candidate. Yes. There are some Saturday nights I had to really think through my opens. But he's my friend, and he has been for 25 years. And I am so proud that he will change the course of American history. You know, he was an overachiever. He was never satisfied with the status quo. Unlike those in Washington, he really not only wanted to make America great again, he wanted to make us proud. of being a part of that great America again. But the Washington insiders and the mainstream media ideologues tagged him with every negative characterization that they could. Why? Because he is the clearest, most driven threat to the perverse, twisted world they created, that one in which we had been forced to live. A nation where, shockingly, the term law and order is actually offensive, where the protection of the criminal, the illegal immigrant, and the terrorists are more important than the safety of American citizens. A nation where you could be bullied or silenced for stating or living your beliefs as a Christian, as a conservative, or yes, as a gun owner. All of a sudden, everything that made us special, the Judeo-Christian principles, were under attack. The media set everything backwards. You know, I got to tell you a story. I got to stop for a second. So I'm walking in here. Can I walk away from that? So I'm walking in here today, and a guy comes up to me, and he says, Judge Pirro, Judge Jeanine, whatever he called me, he said, do you think that some of the stuff you say are over the top? No. So I said, who are you? He said, I'm with CNN. So I just said, he said, well, why do you say what you do? Something like that. I said, watch my show. You can find out. I'm on Saturday nights at 9 o'clock. So we said, I watch your show every night. Except I'm only on Saturday night. And there you have the fake news right out of the box. I hadn't even walked into the building. But when President Trump came, he came to a country where hard-working, forgotten men and women didn't get a fair shot. Instead, we were made to pay for those who violate our immigration laws. We were forced to pay, as the president said today at this very podium, $1.5 billion, $150 billion, excuse me, to a country committed to our destruction and the destruction of Israel. And if we objected to any of this, the Democrats and the media called us racists and fascists. And so it was that Donald Trump stepped into the spotlight, a patriot who believed in putting America's interests first, who believed that the decline of a great nation was not inevitable, but instead a choice. And that president, talking to you here today, talked about safety. He talked about the first order of government, which is the protection of its citizens. And he said that every child deserves to be raised in a safe community. And I can't go forward without recognizing those lost on Valentine's Day in a school shooting that most of us are still trying to comprehend and process. And in their honor, I think we should bow our heads in a moment of silence for all of them. You know, after that shooting, the reaction of many was to take away guns and make schools gun-free zones, which might very well be my reaction if, God forbid, something like this horror and this evil was perpetrated upon my child or family member. But I learned in law school that hard facts make bad law. Some have even said that the blood of these young people is on the hands of gun owners. Let me be clear. I am a gun owner.
Me too.
Long guns, handguns, all kinds of guns. And how dare you compare law-abiding citizens who go through the process to legally buy a gun, exercising our Second Amendment right, to the evil mass murderer in Parkland, Florida, a nut job whose signs of impending disasters were missed by just about everybody, in addition to our elite FBI. You know, I once trashed the mother of the Boston bombers. I called her the jihadi bomb because she trashed America. And I got huge blowback and criticism, pushback, that I was denigrating all Muslims by trashing her. I wasn't. I was trashing her. But let's turn this one around. You want to blame me for trashing all Muslims because I trashed one person? Well, how about you not blame all gun owners for the actions of one person? Now, I know crime. I was in the trenches where the fight between good and evil unfolds every day, and I have seen the worst of the worst. I did it for 30 years. And to think that disarming legal gun owners will put an end to gun violence is a joke. And if the Obama administration and the leftists and those who hate guns and our Second Amendment had their way, we could all be like Chicago, possibly the murder capital of the world, of America, where no one is allowed to have a gun but the criminals. They take away guns from everyone but the criminals. And that's the mentality that got thousands of people, victims, including children, killed in the first place. In Chicago, children where guns are illegal are shot at so often, they don't even run and when they hear gunfire when they're on the playground. The clearance rate is more than 50%. There is more than a 50% chance that no one will be held accountable for killing, let alone arrested, God forbid, even convicted. We need law and order. We need prosecution. And you want to know how to stop gun crime? We need the increased background checks. And we need to stop those with mental issues from buying a gun. And I don't know what the way to do that is, but maybe we ought to start tracking kids in school. Maybe we ought to start tracking kids with problems and then putting together a RID where we find out who's buying a gun and who's got a problem. Now, how tough is that? If we can handle 20 million people who don't belong here, we can certainly handle the kids in this country who might be a risk to our kids in schools. How tough was it for the FBI to pick up a phone? How tough was it when they literally predicted what this kid would do? They had more probable cause in that phone call than I've seen in half the warrants I signed as a judge. Shame on them. You prosecute gun crimes. You figure out who's buying those guns. You arrest the criminal. And you know what? All this nonsense about we need to insure guns, we need to track guns, we need to register guns, we need to do this to guns. No! What you need to do is stop gun crime and start prosecuting those who are buying guns and using them illegally, and stop being afraid to use the power of the law against those who are looking to hurt the rest of us. And they want to hold us up to public disdain by telling people that we, the legal gun owners, are dangerous. And they want to tell people what kind of guns we should have, or whether we should even have a gun at all. How much ammunition is enough ammunition? And how big a magazine we should have. Well, here's this New Yorker's answer to you. It's not only no, it's hell no. I don't need your permission or your sanctimonious condescension as to the reason why I should have or should not have a gun. I own guns because it's my right. It's my Second Amendment right, and no one in Washington gave me that right. And you're not going to take it away. It's a natural right, confirmed by the very people who founded this nation. You heard him today. You heard him talk about how the American dream is being renewed. We got a market that's roaring, unemployment at historic lows, tax cuts, the military getting the support that it deserves to protect us, freedom of religion that doesn't have to be practiced in the shadows. He has reignited the flame of liberty, and he is a nationalist in a long line of distinguished nationalists like our founding fathers, like Winston Churchill, like Abraham Lincoln. They were all nationalists, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I'm proud of it, and I'm proud of him. And despite all of this, tonight, we must acknowledge that the struggle that elected this man and empowered this administration is still ahead of us. The struggle is still ahead of us. The opposition, the hate, the lies, the obstruction, the resistance of those who claim to love America is unparalleled in American history. And it is time for the same Americans who helped put Donald Trump in office to gear up for the next revolution. To stand firm in our principles, in our faith, in our love of America, and in the man, Donald Trump. So, if you want to see that shining city on the hill that Ronald Reagan talked about continue to be a shining city on a hill, then we need a man whose views are most like that of the moral vision of our founders, the framers of the Constitution. We need a man whose philosophy is based not on politics, but on moral reasoning. A man who understands that we are born with certain natural rights, rights which we do not get from government, rights which we get from God. A man who understands that government only has the power that we, the governed, consent to give it. And like our founding fathers who gave up family and fortune for a vision called America, we too must be vigilant in protecting her and all that she stands for. It is up to you. 2018 is just around the corner, the 2018 elections. You may have worked hard to get him elected, but strap in. This ride is going to be even bumpier than before. I tell young people all the time to stop worrying about hurting someone's feelings and being politically correct. Right is right and wrong is wrong. And if you don't stand up for your values, if you don't stand up for what you believe in, if you don't stand up to what you believe in, then we all fail and we lose America. Dilly-dallying is not the way to do this. You know, according to James chapter 1, verse 6, when you ask, you must believe and not doubt, because the one who doubts is the wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. That's what will happen to us in America if we do not put that stake in the ground and stand strong to our values. And I don't want to hear about any more politically correct nonsense. It's time to stop being politically correct and start being morally right. It's time to go back to being America. Go back to being unafraid. Time to go back to the America that our founding fathers envisioned and that they would actually recognize today. You know, it's Ronald Reagan, whose words I always end up with. They ring true when I think especially about the path that this country is on. It goes something like this: freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We don't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same. I believe America's best days are still in front of her. We have a man who is willing to take the shots, a man who can get us there. So you have a choice. Do you want to go back to the lies, the corruption, the trashing of our Judeo-Christian ethics, and an America overrun by people who actually hate our guts? Do you believe in America? Do you believe in the Constitution? Do you believe in a nation with borders? A strong military? Do you respect law enforcement? Do you believe in law and order? Do you put American citizens before those who have no right to be here and want to hurt us and injure us in sanctuary cities? Aren't the Americans in those cities entitled to justice? If you can say that you are proud to cling to God and guns, then you don't have a choice, do you? God bless you. God bless America, and God bless Donald Trump.
We will make America great again.